Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Eden Road podcast, where on today's show we're going to be previewing a trip to Goodison Park on Saturday night. Before that, though, if you haven't already listened to our Luton full-time show in which we dissect that 5-star performance, go do so now. That episode is live across all platforms, so do go and have a watch or a listen to that episode before coming on to this preview. Joining me for this preview, though, is Mike from the Unholy Trinity Everton Podcast. Mike, mate, first of all, great name. Second of all, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the pod, mate.
Yeah, no problem at all. As I just said, it's a bit of a busy time at the moment, especially with us with obviously 3 home games in 6 days. So it's a busy time, but glad to be on.
Good stuff, mate. Just before we get going, guys, remember to drop a comment down below, subscribe to the YouTube and Spotify channels, and also give us a follow on our socials. That's at the Eden Road on Twitter and at Eden Road Pod on Instagram. Let's just get straight into this, Mike. I like to start these previews with a quick look back at the opposition's last game, and in this instance, it's quite an eventful one to dissect. 3 points against Forest, not without its controversy, but just how important was that game and those 3 points to Everton?
Absolutely massive, on the back of a drubbing by Chelsea as well. Don't forget. So for the players to actually respond in a positive manner and put on a performance that has been typical of what we've seen under Sean Dyche when we've won games, and that's literally be difficult to beat. Take our moments when we can. Sometimes we look to counter. We're strong off set pieces as well, and a couple of goals in from open play, which has been a rarity in the last well this season really. We've had more set piece goals than open play goals, so it was massively important from the standpoint that obviously Forest are right down there with us, and it gives us that little bit of a buffer now, that 5-point gap between ourselves and Luton in the bottom 3, with obviously them still to play as well.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the kind of run of games that we have it's weird that all 3 of these teams, us, Everton, Luton and Sheffield United, all play each other within this 3 weeks. It's quite mad. But at the time of recording, you're playing Liverpool tonight. So big Merseyside derby to look forward to. Added spice, because there's a bit of an incentive that if you get 3 points, Liverpool's title hopes are over. But I'm sure that bit of spice is there already in Merseyside derbies. How are you feeling ahead of it?
Yeah, I think after the weekend's win against Forest, we can go in there a bit more relaxed. I think if we'd drop points against Forest, or worst case scenario, lost the game, I think it brings an added tension to tonight's game. I think we're all feeling fairly calm about things. It's not the end of the world if we lose the game tonight. Obviously, it's the manner of defeat if we do get beaten. We can't afford to be shipping 4 or 5 goals, but the players can certainly go in there with a little bit of confidence. We know what's on the line for us. We can almost get ourselves over the line, if you like. If we win tonight, then it's 8 points clear of Luton, with only 4 games to go. Obviously, with yourselves to play at the weekend. So we're getting ourselves. We can edge ourselves closer to the finish line. But a draw would be a decent outcome for ourselves. What they do is none of our concern. They're fighting for the league title. Years gone by when we haven't found ourselves in this position, obviously outside of the last 3 seasons, you make more of it in terms of stopping them win the league title, but we just don't care. If they win the title and we survive, that's all that matters. Stop. But we know tonight a point or 3 points for us ends their title hopes. But more importantly, it's one further tiny step for us to actually stay in the Premier League.
That game's followed up by, like I just said, games against us, Luton, and then Sheffield United. When you see that run of games, and I know because, as I mentioned, we're sort of in the middle of one of those run of games at the moment, and all the other 3 teams are as well. Are you confident that Dyche knows how to get points from these big crunch games at the end of the season, considering the experience that he's got in being in these kind of dogfights towards the end? What's the kind of mood amongst the fans at this point in the season as well?
I think prior to that win against Forest, it was very downcast. We'd beaten Burnley, which I think was our first win in 14 games. Then got 10 over by Chelsea, so very much doom and gloom. And I think the players and the manager proved us all wrong at the weekend to get that 2-0 win. So we know he's got experience of this kind of situation. We were there ourselves with him last season. He's very experienced, obviously, with his time at Burnley especially. So I've said it all the way through. He was the right man at the right time for us when he was brought in. To be fair to him, we'd be mathematically safe by now. If it wasn't for the points deductions, we'd be 13 points clear of the bottom 3 and we couldn't go down. So that would be job done. It's not his fault that we've been docked these 8 points. So I think, we generally speaking, we're fairly satisfied with the manager I'd say overall, still a few dissenting voices out there, but I think he is the right man at the right time. His experience and the players' experience in the last 2 or 3 years will be vital as well. And we've shown that we can pick up important points against sides that we need to, including Burnley, including Forest. Yourselves, you're safe now. Fantastic win for yourselves at the weekend against Luton. So you can certainly count yourselves as being safe this season. So hopefully, we can put things to bed in the next 2 games. But football, it's a funny game, and what are the chances on us beating Liverpool and then you turn us over? That's the way it goes as an Everton fan. But big sort of 3 or 4 games for us now. Before, the last game of the season against Arsenal was almost a bit of a write-off. We've got to be safe by then. It's as simple as that. And if we're not, I wouldn't like to go to the Emirates looking for a point or 3 points if they're still fighting for the title.
Yeah, especially in the form that Arsenal. Well, yes, last night they were incredible. But just on a wider point about Dyche, how long do you see him? Say he stay up this season. Do you think Dyche is the answer going forward? I know the owners. I think there was rumours about 777, and I do want to talk about 777 as well. But I think I read somewhere that they'd be wanting to change the manager if they came in with the takeover. But what about the fans? What do the fans think of Dyche in terms of his future at Everton?
I think generally speaking, you've got a bit of a split, I'd say, at the moment. Some people are saying, whatever the situation at the end of the season, let him go. If we survive, let him go. It's job done. We've got to start to look forward. Other people, are quite happy to see him stay on. He's earned his stripes almost. If we do survive, he's, as I say, we should be clear of relegation at this moment in time, but we're not because of the points deduction. So he's done what he's been asked to do. It's how far can Sean Dyche take this side? But I think what we need to take into account is that next season, we're going to see similar. And Everton fans might not like me saying that, but it's going to be a similar kind of situation, hopefully with no points deductions. But, grinding out wins, we're going to have to sell, 2 of our better players in the likes of Jared Branthwaite and Amadou Onana for big money. So it's how we reinvest that. Obviously, the whole protracted takeover situation with 777, it's been an ongoing saga. Quite clearly, they haven't got the money. That's quite obvious. So it's where does that end? How does it end? Do we see another group come in? There's talks of consortiums waiting to step in. Obviously, Bramley Moore is now going into our final season at Goodison Park, so Bramley Moore's not too far away as well, which a lot of us are seeing as this silver bullet. Will Sean Dyche be there to lead us out of Bramley Moore? I'd probably say no, but who knows, because there's not loads of money at the club to start paying managers off. I think he'd be due him and his team about £2 million if we said, right, on you go. His contract runs until June 25, which is obviously the end of next season. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I think no one's looking beyond these next 5 games, and that's the really important thing. And also the question is, who will come in to satisfy the fans, but also bring stability as well. That's a big factor, because it's not going to be a case of bringing in a manager who's looking to maybe be progressive and give them time. You need someone to come in. You can pretty much guarantee that you can, your safety if we are in the Premier League. So that's a big factor as well, I'd say.
You mentioned that you think it might be the same again next season. In light of that, and in terms of your broader season this year, are you at all surprised with the position that Everton are in? I think I've read somewhere that the XG table has you guys a lot higher than you actually are in the table. So obviously chance conversion is a problem. But were you, because I remember thinking at the start of the season, some of the signings that you made, I genuinely thought this might be the year that we don't see Everton in a relegation fight. Obviously points deductions has come into it as well. But in terms of being towards the lower end of the table, were you fully expecting that at the start of the season?
Yeah, I think I predicted on our podcast about 14th, 15th, and we'd be 14th now if we had those points back. So it was about right. We're looking at the deals that we did last summer in terms of players that were brought in. Obviously, the likes of Yusuf Chimiti, 19-year-old kid from Sporting Lisbon, very, very young. Beto, very raw. He's done okay, but it's clear it's his first season. You've still had issues around. Obviously, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he's been a lot fitter this season. That seems to have been addressed. We're not a terrible run in terms of goal scoring. Only recently broken his duck for, I think, sort of 22, 23 games. So a lot of factors to take into account. Players that we lost as well, with the likes of Alex Iwobi, who I always liked him. I think he's a real player, and I think he's shown that at Fulham as well. He went because we needed the money. Damari Gray, impact player, but he went, so we lost his pace. He had the experience of Connor Cody at the back. We couldn't complete that deal because of what Leicester were asking, and Everton wouldn't commit to it. So a lot of it was to do with finances, and the players that have been brought in, they were never really going to come in and hit the ground running. We get excited about obviously when players come in, of course we do, but you got to be realistic and say, is a kid from Sporting Lisbon and a striker from Udinese really going to come in and do the job? They need time to develop and understand the rigors of the Premier League. So I think we were all under no illusion that it was going to be a season that it was going to be a bottom half finish. I think the disappointing thing and the most frustrating thing for us is we would be safe now. The points deduction has absolutely killed us a couple of times. It's also given momentum to the likes of Luton. People going about Luton, they're the real victims. No, they're not. The reason that they're still fighting is because we've had 2 deductions and Forest have had 1. Otherwise, there's no relegation battle as far as I'm concerned. Not for us. And Luton have been boosted time and again. And I think that's what really frustrates us, is that we should be now sitting there going into tonight's Merseyside derby with our flip-flops on, sitting at Goodison Park, sipping a cocktail and feeling happy about life. But unfortunately, it's not meant to be. And we've still got to fight, and we've still got to grind out, probably maybe 3 or 4 more points over the next 5 games to really cement our place.
I think I might be confusing transfer windows, because those are I was thinking of Tarkowski and Onana, but were they from the previous transfer window? Then?
Previous year, yeah.
Right, okay, got you. I've definitely confused my transfer windows there, because I look at the spine of Everton's team, and obviously Branthwaite's come through this year. I think Tarkowski's fantastic, and Brentford fans know a lot about him. Onana, Decore, solid. Obviously, Calvert-Lewin's had a bit of problems in front of goal this year, and with his injury record as well. But I do want to talk about the ownership stuff before we get on to the game on Saturday, because obviously I think news. Well, I'm not sure if it was new news, but I read yesterday that they're looking for a third-party investment to come in terms of that prospective takeover. What's the mood amongst the fans in terms of them specifically taking over? Because I've listened to a few podcasts, and apparently these guys, I don't want to say dodgy because I don't want to get done for, I don't want to get libeled or anything, but they don't seem like the smartest operators in terms of buying these teams and turning them into something good. But what's the thoughts from Everton fans?
You see all the horror stories. That's the main thing. You see talk of lawsuits. You see the history with other clubs that they've bought or they've bought into, and some have done okay, others haven't. Some of the fans from those clubs would say they sort of almost asset strip, so they'll sell players for decent money and then replace them with lower level players and things like that. I think it's quite clear, they haven't got the money up front. They're borrowing to give to us at this moment in time. That's how it's going. Now, obviously, if they take over, that gets converted to equity anyway, so that doesn't really matter. If they don't, it's down to Farhad Moshiri to put his hand back in his pocket and start to keep the club basically going once again. And I think he's trying to avoid that. There was a big factor last week where there was a loan due back to MSP, who were looking to buy a stake in the club, which was vetoed by one of our third-party lenders, our biggest third-party lender. They said, no, we're not having them on unless they repay what you owe us. So they were due money back, or they could have taken control of the club, and they've even said, oh, no, we'll give you an extension. So it shows you we're not particularly attractive at this moment in time. I think until we get to Bramley Moor, Everton now probably seen as a viable option. And there's obviously a mountain of debt. There's creditors that need to be paid. Bramley Moor's got to be finished off in terms of financially as well. There's not a great deal more to find, but there is still some more money to find to finish that off. So these have come along, and because they've offered Farhad Moshiri the most money, really, he's happy to play the waiting game. But there will come a time, because the Premier League, they've said that they can't veto them. They can't officially say, because they've passed the first test, the directors and ownership test. They can't then say to them, right, it's now a flat no. They just give them as long as they need then to show proof of funding. They said need to provide proof of funding, need to put £60 million in this particular account. And at this moment in time, they haven't met those requirements. I think there's 4 requirements in total. So it's an ongoing saga that we're all sick of. With 7 months in, it's absolutely ridiculous. We want clarity for the sake of the club, for ourselves, for the employees of the club as well, because we want to be able to look forward and enjoy that final season at Goodison Park, and then rock up at our new home in a much more stable position with new owners on board, and being able to look up as opposed to look down. But the fan base on the whole, I think, will probably say they're not too keen on these fellas, that's for sure. And I understand why. I'm probably in that boat now. Always happy to give people a chance, but the longer it's gone on, the more obvious it becomes that the chances really and the way things are going, they won't be taken over anytime soon.
Yeah, let's hope for it to get resolved sooner rather than later. Onto the game on Saturday then. I think Everton and Sean Dyche teams in general, whether that be Everton or Burnley, have a pretty decent record against Brentford. I think the only win we have against you guys in the Prem was in our first season, and that was aided by Everton going down to 10 in the first half. How have you felt in previous games against Brentford, and how are you feeling going into the game on Saturday against Brentford?
I mean, it might change given tonight's performance, to be honest with you. But as I say, we're fairly relaxed about tonight. We've got to be honest, and we'll see what happens there. But I think we know our destiny and our fate in our own hands. I think a lot's been made of this week. Forest, Liverpool, Brentford, 3 games, 6 days at Goodison Park. You look at those 3 games on paper, you could argue the 2 of them are winnable in terms of Forest and yourselves. With all due respect, doesn't mean we're going to win it, by the way. But as fans, you look at them and you think, well, where can we pick up points before the end of the season? And they were 2 games. The derby you almost write off, and anything is a bonus. Obviously, yourselves, I saw the game Saturday, saw all the major highlights, and by all accounts, much better side against Luton. Took your chances, were clinical, and you've got players that can hurt us. Obviously, I mean, Tony's the obvious one, but I think there's a little bit of a few issues behind the scenes, should we say, in terms of him and Thomas Frank's relationship, given he won't show up about moving to other clubs in the summer, which is a bit disrespectful. But for me, the player that I've always seen as a massive threat for yourselves is Mbeumo on the right or left. I'm sure that he can play either side. He's a real threat. You watch him, he's got pace, he's got power. He's a decent finisher. And he's always someone that I'll look out for and think he's a real threat on that side. And under Thomas Frank, Thomas Frank's been there for a number of years. He's built a good side. He's got a structure in place and plays a certain way. And okay, you were in a little bit of trouble this season, but I think deep down everyone knew, with Tony coming back in especially, that you had enough to really pull away. So there's always a threat, I think, from an attacking sense. For ourselves, we know that our strengths are our set pieces and being difficult to break down. That's what we will try and do. We don't tend to change, and when we do, it goes down the Swanee as per Chelsea. We try to go toe to toe and conceded 6 goals. So I think when we play to our strengths, we'll be difficult to beat. Probably a goal either way will decide the game. But it's a big few days for us, as I say. We could very much put things pretty much to bed this week if things go our way. Say nothing's guaranteed, and nothing would surprise me more than getting a win tonight and then getting beat by yourselves on Saturday, to be honest.
You mentioned a couple of our players. Any Everton players that we should be looking out for? Anyone that's particularly impressed you in recent weeks? I mentioned James Tarkowski. I think he's fantastic, although Brentford fans don't have a lot of love for him after the way that he left the club. But I still think he's a great player, and he should, in my opinion, should still be considered for an England spot. But I feel like Jared Branthwaite's probably solidified. Well, didn't play, which was another Southgate thing to do, but he's looked a real gem. But anyone else that's particularly impressed you in recent weeks?
I mean, it's Branthwaite's been the one. I mean, he had an off night against Chelsea. He's 21 years of age. He's played 40 games in the Premier League. It's understandable. His rise this season has been nothing short of phenomenal, really, after a great season on loan at PSV. So he's one of, I'm sure you'll see it during the game on Saturday, assuming that he comes through tonight. Okay, that you can see his quality. Against Forest, he was fantastic again. He's back to his normal self, and having a centre half partner like James Tarkowski next to him, it's just that's what he needs. We need someone like that. But he's a leader, Branthwaite, for someone of his age. We scored the first goal against Forest, and he went over to celebrate, but straight away was come on lads. He said, let's make sure now we concentrate. he's very much a leader for someone so young. It's great to see. In terms of, you think about exciting players at Everton, we've struggled in terms of our attacking side of things. Calvert-Lewin went off with a niggle against Forest. The rumours he may be fit for tonight, but who knows? Dwight McNeil obviously got his first goal for a good while. In terms of looking at players and to be excited by, you might see a bit of Yusuf Chimiti, who's the centre forward we got from Sporting Lisbon. Hasn't been given much time. I think his total playing time in the league this season is 90 minutes. So that says it all. I think he's been booked about 4 times though in those 90 minutes. But he's one of those. He's a grafter, got a bit of quality, scored a few goals for the under-21s, and a player we want to see a little bit more of. And he might get his chance now, given the fact that Dominic Calvert-Lewin has got a bit of a niggle. He might not risk him tonight, given the fact obviously we've got another game on Saturday as well. But the real standout, and he'll walk away with all the awards this season for Everton, is Jarrad Branthwaite. And unfortunately, he's a player that we're going to lose in the summer and we're going to get big money for. And he should be going to Euros, and White Southgate didn't give him any kind of minutes in the latest international break is baffling. But it wasn't just him. Cole Palmer's another player who just let sit on the bench. So Jarrad Branthwaite is a real talent, and I think you'll see that on Saturday.
Did he play against us in the reverse fixture? I'm trying to remember now. But
yeah, he did. He didn't play the first 2 games of the season because he went with Michael Keane, and then he realised that Michael Keane shouldn't be anywhere near the start 11, even after learning no lessons from the previous year. And then he brought Branthwaite in, and he's never looked back since then. So he definitely played the reverse fixture. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it would be good to see him because I've not seen him live yet. I've obviously seen highlights of him, and his England call-up is testament to how well he's been playing. But no, it would be good. What kind of game are you expecting on Saturday? And then last question is the score prediction. So yeah, what kind of game are you expecting?
I think from us, we were looking to go the same way as the Forest game. Forest had a number of players that, attacking players that have pace. And I'm always concerned when we come up with sides with pace on the attack because we're pretty slow. When you've got Ashley Young, who's 75 playing right back, and Tarkowski's not particularly quick. We do struggle. We can struggle, but we marshalled, I thought, the Forest players, Hudson-Odoi, Gibbs White, Alanga when he came on, Rain, and we marshalled them quite well, to be fair. So I think it'd be a similar game. We want it to be a similar game. Obviously, keep it tight ourselves and take our moments when we can. And I'd hope that, given the goals that we scored against Forest, the players now are going to take a little bit more of a chance in the rounds with the 20-25 yards, because we never normally do. We get there and we turn back, or we get a shot away when there's no shot on. And I think that might give them a little bit more confidence to do that. But I think it will be a tight game. I do expect, we're not going to turn up and just leave gaps all over the place defensively. I wouldn't have thought, we haven't got the attacking players to get us out of jail almost. So we've got to score first. It's shown this season. I think it's our last, 11 or 12 wins at Goodison Park have all been to 0, which is an incredible stat. So we've got to not concede, is what I'd say. And if we do concede, we've got to be about 3 or 4 goals. We'll probably do to make sure that we're okay. But I can't see us scoring 3 or 4 goals. So a tight game for me, a real tight game.
Yeah, I think when we've played Everton in the past, it's never been a kind of drubbing on each side. I think there's been a few, like, I want to say there was maybe a 0-0 or a 1-1 in one of the games we played at home as well. It's always been a pretty cagey affair when we played Everton. So let's hope it's a little bit more open than it normally is. But yeah, I think that'd be a good point to wrap things up. The Ealing Road Podcast will be back next week to reflect on what, hopefully, fingers crossed, is 3 points away from home. In the meantime, though, remember to drop a comment down below with your thoughts ahead of the Everton game. Subscribe to the YouTube and Spotify channels, and also give us a follow on our socials. That's at the Ealing Road on Twitter and at Ealing Road Pod on Instagram. Mike, mate, absolute pleasure. Good luck for tonight.
Cheers, mate.